Mike, good to see you again.
Good to be here.
Congressman Flood.
Yeah, either way.
Well, you'd given me a heads up about this bill that's down there, Justin Wayne's bill, and this had been under the radar for pretty much all of this session. LB 894, it would change law enforcement certification requirements. Basically, this would allow people in Nebraska with DACA status, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, to serve in law enforcement, to get certified to serve in law enforcement in Nebraska. And this thing passed on a general file yesterday, the first round, big, 36-8, was it?
Well, actually, the amendment was just adopted yesterday, and so there's still 3 rounds to go. But, there's no doubt we've got a recruitment and retention problem in law enforcement in Nebraska. And to be honest, the Nebraska legislature has outkicked its coverage by making us the only state in the nation to give in-state tuition for free to law enforcement officers and their dependents to try and grab more people to the state.
Right.
But the idea of giving jobs to folks that aren't here legally, and deferred action is just that. Every 2 years they got to reapply. I think is a foul. And let me tell you why. Think about this: you're in court, defendant is sitting there, jury's all seated. What's the first question the defense lawyer is going to ask that officer that's here? Sir, Mr. Officer, are you in this country legally? Well, no, I'm not. Did you enter this country illegally? Yes, I did. That immediately impugns the officer's integrity, and find a jury in Nebraska that doesn't have strong opinions about immigration.
Right. A lot of people have emailed this morning, and some of them are saying, and I was not particularly aware of this, if you're not in the country legally, you are not allowed to legally own a firearm. Well, that's kind of a problem if you're in law enforcement, right?
Here's the deal. I think this is well-intentioned. I think the legislature, they're trying to figure out how to address the recruitment and retention problem. They've done great work last year with that tuition thing. But putting, right now, you can't vote if you're DACA. You can't get Social Security. You can't hold public office. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't be enforcing the laws against citizens of the United States, the state of Nebraska, the city or the county that you're in. And I think Nebraskans, when they have the opportunity to really unpack what this does, will understand that this is an ill-conceived step.
Do you think this could be tweaked? As you say, it has. You were the speaker. You know how the legislative system works. Can this be tweaked further so that there are restrictions put in place? For example, I communicated with Douglas County Sheriff Aaron Hansen about this, and he said, we recommended limiting it to college officers, in other words, not officers on the street, and requiring that they be in the process of getting citizenship and lose verification or certification if they're ultimately denied naturalization. That seems reasonable to me. Could this legislation be tweaked, and would that help you with it?
I think that it just introduces too much uncertainty into the justice system. When you have non-citizens enforcing the laws against citizens, I have a lot of respect for Sheriff Hansen, but I want to say, DACA is hard, right?
Yeah,
they were brought here as children, some babies. We've extended a lot of grace to them for a lot of the right reasons, but there have to be reasonable limits on that. And I think saying no to being in law enforcement is a reasonable limitation.
Okay.
I let you off the hook yesterday on this one, and I'm really glad that
you're
back.
changing the subject?
A little bit. Because people want to know about the money that is going to NGOs from the federal government. And NGOs are basically nonprofit organizations that the government contracts with to handle illegal immigrants. Everything from Catholic charities to Lutheran Family Services and all the rest. Where is the money for this coming from? Are they through agencies, or is there an appropriation from the government to them?
This is federal money. Governor Abbott down in Texas has thrown the flag on this. It's obviously a huge problem. Everything we do to advertise that our border is open and to provide services to folks who end up can't work here legally at the end of the day, we create a problem for our border agents. We create a national security issue for America. We create methamphetamine and fentanyl problems for America. Governor Abbott is right to zero in on that, and it's almost like you were at the Bellevue Town Hall last night because that issue came up.
Well, I have spies everywhere. But the main thing is taxpayers are paying for a lot of stuff that Americans are not receiving for illegal aliens because they are coming through NGOs. They're being financed through NGOs. So is it the Department of Defense? Is that where the money's coming from? Homeland Security? DHHS? Who is providing money for NGOs, which are non-government organizations, to take care of people once they get here?
Well, you've got the Department of Homeland Security that operates the Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol works in sync with the NGOs because there's a relationship there. And then you have the Department of Health and Human Services, and between those two agencies, you have this system that's set up to accommodate these folks that are, quote-unquote, here seeking asylum. They enter the United States, they get processed, they get a court date in 5 years, and then they get the services of one of these NGOs.
But they also get a cell phone, they get food, they get travel to and from, they get Social Security
sadly,
benefits.
A lot of them get put in a stash house and are sex trafficked or
Sure.
human trafficked.
Or they're running marijuana farms in Oregon. But the main thing is how much oversight is the government offering for these NGOs that are supposed to be following a mission, because many of them are tax-exempt organizations. They have a mission, and they have to follow their mission in accordance with their status. So if they're not doing what their mission intended them to do, then they could lose their 501c3 status. But mostly, they should lose the money that's being appropriated to them by the federal government, shouldn't they?
Well, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 2, which, if that were put into law, you would see a real slowdown at the United States border, and the Senate has no interest.
That's right, and they don't want to talk about that. Right. All they want to talk about is how we had this great Senate bill, and the Republicans killed it.
Well, Donald Trump killed it.
And they never acknowledge that H.R. 2 is behind. That's been a year at least, right?
Just give us remain in Mexico. You know? Negotiate that like Donald Trump had. Stop waving our arms and saying, come here.
Yeah, we got to run, but I want to get back just for a second to this Justin Wayne bill, Mike Flood. What would you think? You talked about how we've extended grace to DACA kids. I think for good reasons. Little kids had nothing to say about how they got here. Could we fast track the citizenship track for those kids? Well, they're not all kids now, obviously. But if they've grown up here, this is what they know, and they're good. They're not criminals. How about fast tracking citizenship for those kids?
You know, in the Congress, in the House at least, you've got probably 100 members that are in coastal areas or along the southern border. There's no discussion of immigration reform until the border gets secured. Right. And so,
which, I don't.
But I'm not saying that shouldn't be something that's taken up by Congress. We're not going to get there until the border's secure.
Good to have you on. Thanks.